Looking for a cozy Halloween project that is cute as a pumpkin? This poncho is the perfect way to bring a little autumn magic to your outfit. Hi, I'm Christina, a digital pattern maker who loves creating wearable art that you can wear and share. In this video, I'll guide you step by step through making this fun pumpkin-inspired poncho. You can find the full pattern linked down in the description below. If you enjoy sewing along with me, make sure to like and subscribe for other fun sew along holiday themed projects and accessories. Let's go ahead and dive on in and get sewing. Since Joann's Fabrics has recently closed, I went to a few different thrift stores to find some orange fabric, and I found this fabulous orange sheet. So I washed it, and now I'm going to make a fun pumpkin poncho out of it. I first need to open it up so it's easier to actually cut out my sewing patterns. I'm going to seam rip the corner seams as well as pull out the elastic casing that creates the fitted part of the sheet. To make it easier to cut out my patterns, I'm going to iron out all of the old wrinkles. So this is specifically around the edges where the elastic was bringing in that fabric and making it permanently creased in a way. Then I'm also going to iron the entire thing so that there are very little crinkles and creases and will make it easier to cut out my poncho pattern. While I am ironing, I am also going to iron my collar fabric because it has been sitting in a bin for a little while and has a few wrinkles in it. Since I'm ironing, I'm going to prep both of my fabrics to get ready to get cut. Then I'm going to use my projector to project my pattern onto the fabric. I absolutely love patternprojector.com. This website really helps you calibrate your projector fast and easily project any sewing pattern onto your fabric. I cannot recommend it more. Once my projector is calibrated, I'm going to go ahead and lay out my fabric and then switch over to my pattern. This one is really easy. I only have to cut out the front and back of the poncho, which is the exact same pattern. I can cut it out on the double and be done. We're gonna fold up that pattern and put that fabric away and pull out the collar fabric. I'm gonna lay out this fabric so that I am cutting 2 out each. I want a top and a bottom because I'm going to be self-bagging the collar to finish all of those points. Next, I actually want to mark out all of the points so I have a guideline to go off of what points I want to use. I'm going to use some tracing paper for this, and since I only need the guidelines on one side, I'm not going to worry that I don't have any tracing paper for the bottom, and I'm just going to trace the points on one side. There are a couple of different ways you can go about creating one of these collars. You can give yourself a 1/2 inch seam allowance and use the guideline of your sewing machine. I find it much easier to trace out my stitch line for these points. That way I'm not second guessing myself when I'm at my sewing machine. It also helps if the fabric frays really easily to have those lines marked out. You can see that I'm using a tracing wheel that has 2 wheels on it at once. This wheel is fantastic for projects like this because I can trace the stitch line and the cut line at the same time. I can also change up the width of the seam allowance easily by changing one of the tracing wheels to one of the other hole slots provided. Now it's time to cut out our collars. Before I cut it out, I do want to pin the 2 layers together so that they don't really move on me and it will make it easier in the long run. Then I'm going to cut out my collars on the cut line that I traced out on the two sides and the neckline. However, I am just going to cut close around the bottom edges. I'm going to do this because that'll give me a little bit more wiggle room for if I want to change the points or do anything slightly different. Plus, I am going to have to be trimming away so much later, and that's going to be time consuming. I would rather do a fast, quick cut now than having to slowly and meticulously cut out the 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. This is why I choose to use the tracing paper. Then it's on to the sewing machine where we're going to line up our side seams with right sides together and sew the front to the back on both layers so that we will have our top layer and we will have our bottom layer. Once I have my side seams all sewn together, I'm going to move over to the ironing board and press open those seams. Then it's back to the sewing machine to actually sew the collar together and create all of those points. I'm going to sew around on my stitch line. The best advice I can give you for sewing points like this is at every point, whether it is the outer point or the inner point, is to have a single stitch across. This will provide extra room for your fabric to lay and really help you be able to get those crisp turns and points. So you're going to sew up one side, turn the fabric 90 degrees, walk your sewing machine one stitch, turn to go back down the other side, and repeat. This will help create very beautiful points and make your life so much easier. Once you have sewn all those points using that method, that is when we are going to start trimming away our excess fabric. We want to trim the outer points so that there is not a lot of fabric there. That'll make it easier and not bulky. And we want to make sure that we are clipping in to all of our inner points so that they can release and lay flat. After you have painstakingly trimmed away all your extra fabric, it's back to the iron to flip all these points, use a point turner to get them nice and crisp, and iron them flat. This is going to be another little bit of a process. However, the end result is worth it. It's great to put in all these extra little details to really make that final product look professional and amazing. As you can see, I am working slowly through, turning one point at a time. Then I use my point turner to get it nice and pointed. And then I am going to iron it once they are all flipped right side out. And here we go. My last point to flip out. They are done. Now I'm going to bring over my sleeve board so I can easily feed my collar around it and then iron each one of these points. And voila! Look at that. Look at how good it looks. This is why it is so important to iron at every step. You can make it look so much better if you iron. Once we're done ironing, we are going to go over to the serger and we are going to serge everything we need to serge. We're going to start by serging all the way around our pumpkin poncho main pieces. Since I will not be bagging them out, I want to make sure all my raw edges are finished off in some way so that when I wash this poncho or anything, it stays intact and prolongs the longevity of this Halloween poncho. Once all the poncho pieces are serged, I am also going to serge around the neckline of the pumpkin collar. This will just help also encase all of the edges and help prolong the garment's longevity. Now it's time to create the poncho. With right sides together, I'm going to line up the side seams, starting at the neckline of the poncho, and sew from the neckline to the hem. One thing to note, when you are sewing on a bias line, like this one is, this is not true bias, but it is still a bias, your fabric can stretch. It sometimes is better to sew from the hem to the neckline to keep it from stretching out to the hem. Once you have both side seams sewn, we're going to move over to the iron and press those seams open. Then it's back to the sewing machine to sew the collar to the poncho. We are going to line up the side seams of the collar with the side seams of the poncho, with the right side of the collar matching up to the wrong side of the poncho. This is so that when we do our turn, turn, flip, all of the seam allowance is between the poncho and the collar, completely hiding all of those extra seams. Once you have everything lined up, go ahead and sew around the neckline of the poncho. Once that neckline is sewn together, we're going to go back to the ironing board, press open that seam, and then press to one side. We want to press it to the one side to make it easier when we do our understitch to help hold everything in place. Once you have it pressed to the one side, it's back to the sewing machine and we are going to understitch it. So we are going to be stitching through both seam allowances and the orange poncho this time. Because the collar is going to be flipped out on top, we want that to be a nice clean line. So we want our understitching to be on the poncho. Once you have finished with that stitching, go back to the ironing board and give it one final really good press with that understitching there. Ooh, it's looking so good. Now it's back to the sewing machine to hem it. I'm going to use a turn, turn, hem, following how wide my serging is. If you would like a perfectly even poncho, then I would highly suggest putting on your poncho and marking it evenly with the floor. I'm not too concerned with how even my poncho is because sometimes I might be wearing it flat across my shoulders. Sometimes I might be wearing it more where it slipped off of one shoulder, giving that fun off the shoulder look. I'm not going to be too concerned with how perfectly even my hem is. I just want it to look nice and feel good. So once I am done hemming, I'm going to move back over to the ironing board and you guessed it, iron that hem down. Make it look beautiful. I'm going to prep my poncho to get it ready for the face to get ironed on. I'm going to press the rest of my poncho so that there are no wrinkles or anything causing problems for when I want to put on my fun pumpkin face. Now it's time to cut out the pumpkin face that I want. I am cutting out a pumpkin face for this pumpkin poncho as well as for my ghost poncho. If you're interested in that video, check it out up here. I'm first going to lay my iron-on vinyl down onto the cutting mat and then make sure that both pumpkin faces will easily fit within the vinyl that I have ready. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit start on my Cricut machine. I always love watching the Cricut machine work. Then I'm going to pull it off and start to weed it. Now, I really struggled to see the lines of the cut to make sure that I did not accidentally cut through one of my pumpkin faces. So I got another light to really put a harsh angle on it so that I could more easily see where those cuts were when I was cutting apart my two pumpkin faces. That made it so much easier. Once I got them cut apart, it's time to weed out the extra vinyl that I won't be using. I do feel like these pumpkin faces have a lot of wasted vinyl on them. However, they look so cute, I can't be too upset about it. And once the pumpkin faces are weeded out, it's time to move back over to my poncho, find the center, and line up where you want your face to be. If you're unsure about exactly where you want to place it, you can put some masking tape down on either side and put it up on a form or try it on yourself to make sure you're getting your face in the exact position you want. Once you're happy with it, go ahead and iron that face down. You can then peel the vinyl off, put on your poncho, and start having a spooky Halloween with your new amazing pumpkin poncho. Ooh, I love it so much. I can't wait to wear it all Halloween season. Your pumpkin poncho is now ready for all the fall festivals, Halloween parties, or just adding some seasonal fun to your day. I can't wait to see your spooky stitches or the faces you decide to put on your poncho. I would love to see them, so please tag me in your creations. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe so you can see other fun things to create for Halloween or for yourself for everyday wear. I look forward to seeing you in some of my other videos. Happy sewing!